Well, hello, I'm Christopher Herring. I'm the Executive Director of Global Chamber of San Antonio. I'm also the Global Chamber President for Austin and Houston. Today, I'm very happy to be with a couple of my friends from San Antonio that have been doing some of the hardest work to make sure that people receive fairness, that they have equity, and that they are included. And so I have with me today Ernest Martinez, who has been really championing the Cesar Chavez March for Justice. And I've been working with him since I've been in San Antonio after retiring from the United States Air Force. And then also I have Dwayne Robinson, who is San Antonio's MLK Commission Chair. Now, listen, folks, what's really remarkable about San Antonio is that San Antonio can actually say that we have the largest MLK March in the world. We have the largest MLK March in the world. I'll let Brother Dwayne to talk more about that later. And then we also have the largest Cesar Chavez March in the world. And I'm going to let Ernest talk more about that. You know, we thought that this was so important for you to see what we're doing in the city of San Antonio because this world is really going through a lot of change. And these leaders, Cesar Chavez and Martin Luther King Jr., these were men who stood on principles that we still embody and live today. And so when I was looking for content that I thought would satisfy the global audience, it's probably why does San Antonio get behind such two iconic men, and why do they further the advancement of people when other cities don't? So this is what makes San Antonio special, and that's a special picture right there of both Ernest and Dwayne with our current mayor, Mayor Ron Nirenberg. I had the pleasure of being able to go to the press conference in which I saw Dwayne and Ernest, and it was phenomenal. The Si Se Puede was coming through very loud and clear as they were describing the march. And so for you to see the march and to be in the march, know that the city really gets behind this march. The Cesar Chavez March, I've marched in it a number of times. It's very multicultural, and we'll talk more about that. But I just want you to see the work that these men have put in. And then we are also going to talk about, well, what's the unity? You know, why is there unity? And Dr. King and Cesar Chavez both were men who were on a similar path. And that path was that they were not only showing the people that they cared about them, but you know, even there was one point where Cesar Chavez was sick in his fasting, and so Dr. King sent him a Western Union telegram that encouraged him, and the King family encouraged him. So I'm going to stop right there right now, and we're going to come back to some of the formal parts of what's being organized. But I did want you to see that because, again, we're talking about unity, and we're talking about the opportunity for both the MLK Commission Chair and the Cesar Chavez March for Justice to be heard today. So, gentlemen, welcome. Let's start with Ernest. You're really at the last week of this march you've been preparing for. Tell us more about the Cesar Chavez March for Justice.
Well, first and foremost, this is a march that started and was sparked by and blessed by Cesar Chavez himself. By the way, he loved our city. He loved San Antonio. It was a focal point for him. He would stop here, and my father would pick him up from the airport, and they would drive down to the valley. They would mobilize, organize, and so there was a. While there were many visits prior to 1979, my father met him in the early 70s. My Cesar asked my father to introduce him to the community at large at the Mexican American Unity Council in 1979, where there was leaders from the Catholic Church, and there was the labor leaders, and there was the community leaders. We had a young councilman, first time a majority minority led city council. Very tumultuous time. And so that I got to plant that seed today because that's really where it was sparked. And fast forward many years later, of course, Cesar passed away in 1993, and when my father came back from the funeral, I remember he was in a somber state, and he looked up to me and said, "We were at the house," and he said, "Neil, we got to do something for Cesar here in San Antonio." Didn't know what he meant, didn't know what idea he had, but he knew he wanted to honor him. And so, a lot of course, for those who don't know, my father was an activist, labor leader, um, very strong voice in the community. So it was in his heart to do something in San Antonio. As Dwayne can attest to, there's many that came way before us that were championing and lending their voices in our city. So when you say why Cesar Chavez in San Antonio, why MLK in San Antonio, because those seeds were planted way back when, way before us, for those folks lending their voice. And by the way, a lot more difficult for them. So that's why we march. But that the Cesar Chavez March for Justice. Fast forward to today, and now thousands come together to pay tribute to this man.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when we come together, we're going to talk about how both men actually were very charged to take care of real issues of the day. I mean, Cesar was looking at the fields and seeing so many of the labor that, was basically not treated right, not being paid according to their work. And so I'm going to switch now to Dwayne Robinson. Dwayne, um, you have expressed your support for the Cesar Chavez March as the commission chair. So thank you. Tell us more about where you see there is unity. And I'm also reminded that there's a scripture that says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity." So here we are. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, thank you. First and foremost, Chris, thank you for allowing us to have this platform. I don't take it for granted, and it is certainly always good to see and do something with Ernest. We have a relationship that goes back a number of years, but I wrote down something. I think, Chris, when you were first talking, and I think what makes San Antonio so unique is our city is a champion of common people. So when you talk about us having the largest MLK march in the world and the largest Cesar Chavez March for Justice, it's because it's a confluence of common people that come together to honor and respect the memory of two men that were champions of common people. Again, I know oftentimes we want to make this a black and white and brown thing, but some people were just about trying to do things that were right for just people in general. And I think you would easily see on the head of that mountaintop or at the top of that mountaintop the heads of Martin Luther King Jr. and Cesar Chavez.
Oh, absolutely. And so when we're looking at the Cesar Chavez March, Ernest, what should people really expect going into this weekend? It's going to be on Saturday. So right now, what are you doing to prepare for this march?
Well, we have some special guests. We're continuing in the traditions. My father would bring a member of the Chavez family down, and then also honor a local grand marshal, family grand marshal. But what people can expect, for sure, is you're going to see a collective of people from all over across San Antonio. I'm happy to share that now it's no longer just the West Side March, no longer just for the Latino, Hispanic, Mexican American community. It is for everybody in San Antonio. We're seeing that into K through 12, colleges, universities, nonprofit organizations, employer groups. USA is doing a big event next tomorrow, actually. So there is going to be a collective of voices. People are going to be lending their voice to those issues that are most important to them. And some examples of that is be housing. As a father of four daughters, I say equal pay for women.
Okay.
Their voting rights, right? There's a long list there. We could go hours on issues on that. But the one thing that's beautiful about this march is that people are coming to lend their voice. So they're going to hear a lot of different messages. In the morning, we're going to have some speakers to pay homage and tribute to the farm workers. There's Teatro Campesino. It was a way to do theatrical plays in the fields to message what was going on to the farm workers. So we're going to have the Teatro de la Frontera, which is a theater group coming into a 10-minute skit in the morning. It's going to be a message about the injustices of farm workers. It's a reminder of where we come from. Even to this day, there's still injustices in the fields. But also, too, we're going to honor and honor the Velasquez family. You know, I can't think of a better year, Chris, than in 2024 to be raising the legacy of Willie Velasquez. Su voto es su voz. Your vote is your voice. He left us way too early at 44 years old. But we're going to have the Willie Velasquez family as the family grand marshal this year. So we continue on that tradition. We're going to have the president and CEO of the Cesar Chavez Foundation in California. First time a non-Chavez family member that's leading the organization. Paul Chavez has retired, still on the board, but the new president and CEO, Manuel Bernal, who served 24 years under Paul Chavez, will be joining us that day as well, along with the mayor, along with our city council representative, as well as Judge Sakai, and some other leaders that will be lending their voice that day. And so it's going to be a day of celebration, but it's also a reminder to know that that day is a day of reflection, to know where we come from.
It's a day of reflection indeed. And, you know, you said something that was really interesting about the equal pay for work. And then I'm reminded, so yesterday I had a very insightful conversation with the YWCA, who will be also marching in the Cesar Chavez March. And, you know, there are still battlegrounds, right? There are battlegrounds in which, when you said that you have daughters, I have daughters too. And I'm always concerned about the quality of employment that's there for my daughters, and I want them to be able to be paid the same for their contribution to any company that they help to grow. I think the narrative, gentlemen, has to be a little bit different in terms of the approach, and maybe perhaps when we start to ask business people about what their goals and their dreams are, their goals and their dreams for their business, and they start to talk about that end state. The only way they can get to the end state is by treating people right as they go along. You can't be the Amazons or the Teslas if you don't have a work ethic and people who you value consistently in that journey. And so, not saying those two companies emulate those values, because I don't know. They're successful, yes, but I'm just saying that there has to be consistency in the work that we do to make sure that people know that right is right, wrong is wrong, and we have to continue to push that forward. Dwayne, you know, when you think about this opportunity to unify, what were some of the things that went into mind? I know that you and Ernest, you know, had conversations about, you know, why would the MLK Commission get behind the Cesar Chavez March?
So the first and foremost, relationship is important. Again, as soon as Ernest reached out to me, I mean, I didn't even have to think about it. But when we talk about, as you mentioned to me a few days ago, Chris, have some of your ML King quotes ready. Well, one of them that I would put on social media often, and he said that we will not always remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends and stuff. And so for me, just being present with Ernest and the rest of the folks that will be marching, in particular on this coming Saturday, I would hope that my physical presence says something. On a personal note, I remember when we were younger, to make additional dollars, my dad we used to drive cars down to the valley. And the place we always went to was McAllen. We always went down around there. And I was really, really young, and seeing all of those trees, those fruit trees in particular, oranges and stuff like that, it never clicked, you know, who those people were that was doing all of that work. So for me, I can better understand what Cesar Chavez was trying to do. Obviously, as an African American man, I can definitely relate to what King was doing, but there's a shared struggle. And the bad news is that there was a shared struggle back in the 60s, but unfortunately, there's still a shared struggle in 2024. So it's just hopefully my presence will remind folks that there is a continued need to walk hand in hand. And then also on a personal note, I was at the press conference the other day, like you said, Christopher, and I think the individual or individuals that were there that I've known the longest, it would have been ironically Jane Velasquez, Carmen Velasquez, Caterina Velasquez, and their little brother Memo wasn't there. But I've known the Velasquez family since the early 90s and stuff. So, and to be able to participate this year and for Ernest and them to acknowledge that family is very personally touching for me.
Thank you, Dwayne. You hit on so many great points, and so I want Ernest to talk to us about the evening after the march, because I want to make sure that the people know that there's some other events that will also be um, able to they can actually take part in. And I do have a slide that will be at Brooks, so you can fill in the rest for us.
Yes. Before I jump over to the Aguila Awards, as we're calling it, one thing I want to mention: we marched that day. We're marching for a purpose too, to give back. Farm workers feed a nation. Let's feed San Antonio with the Yes We Can campaign. Please, everybody, bring your canned goods to the march. So there'll be bins underneath the Guadalupe Theater marquee where people can drop off their canned goods. And there will be a health fair. Methodist Healthcare Ministries, along with Conviva Healthcare, are doing a health fair at the Civic Park at the end. But yeah, we will march, we give back, and then we celebrate that evening for sure. And that's going to be over at Hangar 9. There at Brook City Base. You know, one of the things that we brought back and we thought it was important was my father always made a point to lift up our local champions in the community. And so we have the 2024 Aguila Awards. Aguila in Spanish is eagle in English, right? The eagle. So the Aguila Awards, we're going to honor Jesse Degollado with the Aguila Lifetime Achievement Award. 40 years of journalism, telling the stories, and sometimes the not often told enough stories, highlighting our heroes in our community. She has definitely done that over 40 years in her media journalism career. And then, of course, a breath of fresh air over in the west side of San Antonio. We have only been here a year and a half. $31 million raised in a very short period of time for Our Lady of Lake University. The first Latino president of Our Lady of Lake University is receiving, Dr. Abel Chavez, receiving the Soaring Aguila for Leadership Award that evening. And so we're going to recognize it. We have a very special announcement that we're going to make at that gala for the scholarships. And then at 9 o'clock, we're going to deliver Little Joe, otherwise known as the King of the Brown Sound. Little Joe y de Familia is going to perform. He was there with Cesar in the early days. He would raise money for the farm workers. So he's going to perform at 9 o'clock. So it's going to be a day of definitely an evening of celebration.
Hey, Ernest,
yes.
you also have support for the march from VIA, and they're going to have various transportations available. Would you like to hit on that as well?
Yeah, and let me really share this piece because our city is growing. There's a lot of construction. The west side is a very difficult place to park. We're encouraging everybody. We're school buses are going to go over to Alamo Dome, but anybody can catch the via free fare bus service from lots B and C Alamo Dome starting at 8 a.m. I encourage you to be there right at 8 o'clock. You want to catch the last bus at 10 o'clock because you're going to catch the tail end of the march. But they're going to run till 10 o'clock. But get the sweet spot is 8:45, and you can get there. But they're going to run till 10 o'clock. They'll take you right to the front of the march. You march 2.1 miles to Hemisphere Civic Park, and then VIA will be running nonstop service back to the Alamo Dome from Gate 4 near the Institute of Texan Cultures. It's walkable from where we're going to end the march, and it'll take you right back over to the Alamo Dome, and those buses will run till 2:30 p.m.
That's wonderful. You know, it's whenever I talk to you, Ernest, and talk to you, Dwayne, I always find that, um, that you two both are very modest men. I was looking for a headshot. This is a joke now. I was looking for a headshot for both Ernest and Dwayne, and guess what? I couldn't find one. I could not find one. In fact, you two are both men of the people, and so you don't have even a headshot. And I thought that was very interesting in this day and age. So hats off to you for your humility. And then let me also show that the efforts that you both do for young people and cascading the legacies of of two men with a rich tradition of history, that you raise scholarship money, right? You raise scholarship money, and so it's helpful to know that we still are investing in the next generation, and they are a part of something that's just wonderful.
Education is key. All of us on this call know that. We know education opens up the doors for us in our community, for our future, for our family, economically. And so that's one of the things. Before my father passed away, he told me, he says, Mijo, you've got to grow that scholarship fund. Well, I'm happy to share. I can't share right now, but we have a record year in fundraising, and it's going to shatter that number you just saw on the screen. So we're looking forward for that night. Education. One of the things that Cesar Chavez once said: you can't oppress the person that has learned to read.
Say that again. Say that again. Say that again.
You cannot oppress the person that has learned to read. Cesar Chavez quote, one of my favorite quotes. Yes, we talked about the social justice of Cesar Chavez, and we also got to mention Dolores Huerta. They were both powerful figures. She's still going strong at 94 years old. But Cesar Chavez once said, we cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity for our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others for their sakes and for our own. Those are the words of Cesar Chavez. And two words that jump off of that quote: progress and prosperity. We all want it. We all deserve it. And that's what this march and the Dr. King March does, is elevate those profiles so we can seek those opportunities.
Man, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful words. Well stated by both of you. I'm gonna bring up um, one more picture that I just want people just to remember and see as I see it, because when we talk about two communities, we oftentimes can see people that will pit and separate us, but for us to come together and to know that historically we've had some semblance of working together. This is also a piece that you shared with me, Ernest, where you showed the NAACP back in the day with Cesar Chavez getting behind the great boycott.
Yes. That picture and the article you see hangs at the National Chavez Center in California. They're in La Paz. La Paz is what they call it there. It's in King, California, north of Bakersfield. And so it's now, by the way, it is now a U.S. national park that was dedicated by President Obama in 2012. And the family has that hung beautifully there at the National Chavez Center. And Chavez was facing some challenges in the Great Boycott. People just started to distance themselves, and so there weren't too many people that were helping. Right? They were challenging the growers. It was a David and Goliath battle. But coming to the rescue for him and really helped him and really propelled him into another platform, further outreaching in California, was the NAACP Western Regional Director, Leonard H. Carter. I encourage you to read up on him. He came to Cesar and says, we're on. We're in with you. We're going to help you boycott these California table grapes. And from there, it led to one thing after another, and the next thing you know, the growers like it's on. If you haven't seen the movie, by the way, it's on Amazon. It's on different streaming services. The Cesar Chavez movie. It was very, very beautiful to see in that movie, and in the history of how Cesar and the farm workers got the attention. It was about economics for the growers. They, oh my gosh, they're not buying our grapes. And I don't know the dollar figure, but in today's dollars, it would have been in the billions of dollars that those growers were crippled, right? And they were just they didn't know what to do and how to handle the situation. Finally, they signed the agreement with the farm workers, and to this day, this past 2 years ago, I marched in California with the farm workers. Martin Luther King III joined in this march. It was a 233-mile march from Delano to Sacramento, the capital. And the reason why they marched was because the governor of California vetoed a bill that would have given the farm workers some very much needed relief. So the farm workers said, we're not having it. So I didn't march 233 miles. I marched about 40 of that over 3 days. But Martin Luther King III joined in that march and other leaders along the way. So I think there's a common denominator and it goes back to what Dwayne said. People. It's about people.
It's about
And
people. Yes, it is about people. And, and I also think that the other common, and this is why Global Chamber San Antonio wanted to have this conversation. I mean, it's also about economics. And when we talk about both communities, we both are searching for to eliminate these disparities in income inequality and wealth disparities, and it's a common denominator. And I remember when Dr. King, just before he was assassinated, he gave a speech, which probably his greatest speech, not the "I Have a Dream" speech, but it was his speech where he talked about if Wonder Bread is treating us bad, then we need to boycott Wonder Bread. And I think that when his voice started to go into commerce, that's when he became the biggest threat. And that's why his voice had to be silenced, because he went into the areas that would truly impact America. We saw that even with the resistance in the Montgomery bus boycott, or the Montgomery movement that occurred, there was, like Cesar with the grape boycott, there was still some people who wanted to end that boycott because it was a significant inconvenience to boycott public transportation. But again, when we think about the sacrifices that we have today, we're still in the battle. We're still on the playing field. I mean, there's still people who are still fighting for justice, from the economic development and the workforce development standpoint. And I know, Dwayne, you're actually going to be speaking this week at the United Way of San Antonio and Bexar County. What will we be talking about?
Yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to your point, you were talking about King and the bus boycott, but remember they were also gonna boycott the stores, the clothing stores, and in the 60s. And one of the things that King was trying to do was they wanted, and even the restaurants, they wanted blacks in management positions. They wanted the retailers to purchase some of their products from blacks to be resold in the stores and in the restaurants. But there was a heavy economic portion of what the movement was about. And so on Thursday, for United Way in their community conversations, I will be discussing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I just think that's really interesting that I was asked for that topic.
Well, you're highly qualified, and you are the commission chair. And I do know that, as I shop at our HEBs, and I look at the produce, I look at the produce in a different way. I know that farm workers still exist and are still doing the hard work that keeps uh, quality food on our table. And so we still have to remember the work of Cesar Chavez is not a part of our history, but it's today. And we still have to have people like Ernest Martinez. We still need to have people like Dwayne Robinson that are still pushing forward. And so, gentlemen, I'm going to give you a wrap up so you can close with your parting thoughts. And please encourage in your parting thoughts, encourage the people from your communities to come out to march on Saturday, March 23rd, and show themselves as being a part of this movement that is going to change, hopefully, the world. I'll give it to you, Ernest.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Chris, for putting this together. Always good to be with you and Dwayne. We're like-minded individuals, and that's something that is um, special, right? We know it's important for our community. But one of the things I think I want to part with today is let's remind ourselves that being of service to others, there's something for everybody to participate in the community, right, and be of service to others. Sometimes it's feeding other people. And I remember one time, Andres Chavez, who you met, Chris, when he came down, he was our Grand Marshal a few years ago, the grandson of Cesar Chavez, was asked a
Yes.
question by a student. They said, "What can, how can we change the world?" And that was a very profound question. I was like, "Oh my God, what's Andres going to say?" And Andres simply said, "Volunteer."
Volunteer.
What the most humble? He could have elaborated. Cesar Chavez, my grandfather was, and he could have gone on a great change in the world. Oh my gosh! First of all, that was a tough question, right? I'm a young person, but to me, that spoke volumes of the importance of being of service to others. That day at the march, we get a chance to be of service to others by feeding hungry people. You don't have to march with your canned goods; just bring one or two canned goods, and with the thousands coming, that's a significant impact for the San Antonio Food Bank. But
Hmm.
once the march is over, that's our opportunity to continue moving that needle and being of service to others. Let's reach out to our friends and our neighbors, people we go to church with, people we work with, and let's not be afraid to talk about what we're talking about today. Because the common denominator is people and will always be people.
Man, that's good. God bless you on that note. Dwayne Robinson, take us home.
Take us home. So I guess I must admit that as Ernest was talking, and again, thank you, Chris, for putting this together for us. And I do want to say that when we talk about connecting Black and Brown people or connecting people that have a shared struggle, what you're doing at the Global Chamber is reminding people that there's a global connection of humanity. We look at this thing and we have a San Antonio chamber, this and that and the other, but it's important what you're doing is reminding that there's a global connectivity to that as well. So thank you for doing that. But I do want to say we were at one of the last events leading up to our MLK March, and it was at one of our orientations. And the diversity of people that participate is amazing. But I'll never forget it was this older white couple that was there, and they had never participated in the march, and they were trying to figure out why is it that the march starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, but you're asking us to get there at 6 a.m. What in the world are we going to be doing from 6 a.m. to 10? And the first response was because if you don't get there early, when you're talking about 200, 300,000 people, you're dead in the water if you're not there by 8 o'clock. So it's going to start backing up. And I said, but one of the things you can do between 6 and 10, and then from roughly 10 to 12 while the march is taking place, is to talk to someone that you never would have had an opportunity to talk to. There'll be people there, all different races, all different genders, all different economic backgrounds. You get a chance to have a conversation with someone that you probably never would have done that. And it's the same thing with the Cesar Chavez March. I know that I will be there in the official capacity with the MLK Commission, but I get to have an opportunity to march and talk to people that I never would have otherwise had that chance to do. I won't be marching next to Ernest. I already know Ernest. I've had some great conversations with Ernest. I'll be where he needs me to be, but at some point you'll see me just kind of drift towards the middle a little bit and just choose. I always like just trying to get to know somebody that I had never seen before in my life.
Man, Dwayne Robinson, thank you. Ernest, thank you. I guess our next time that we're going to come together is we're going to have a Globinar on March strategy, because Dwayne said it. You have to have an intentional March strategy, the strategy of getting to know someone. So leave your girlfriend alone for a second, or leave your boyfriend alone for a second. Learn to love on somebody who is different, and you will find that you will have some things that are in common, more so than you have things that are different. And that's why I go. I'm looking forward to Saturday. Thank you, my brothers. And again, for all those on Global Chamber, you can find us more information about what we do, our mission, at globalchamber.org. So I'm signing off. I'm Christopher Herring, the Executive Director of Global Chamber Austin, Houston, and San Antonio.
Have a great day, guys. Take care.